What's up, guys? Welcome back to High Voltage SLC. I'm Tyler Casperson from Grace and Silence. Here, I've got my good buddy Marco from Gagg Nancy, and we're just going to be talking about music, life, and just having a conversation here today. How are you doing?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's nice to have you back. We were jamming up at the studio the other day, and that was super rad. It's been really fun to hear you play, man. And from the very first time I saw you play, like you've always engaged me. You know, like it's always been really interesting to see you play guitar. And I just wanted to kind of talk about where your style comes from.
Cool, man. Well, before I even get into that, it's the same thing with you, man. I saw you play, I think it was on Instagram. You did a promo for the show, and I was very, very impressed by the ease. You know, I was like, who is this person? And I think we had an immediate kind of connection
for sure.
from the first moment. Where does my style come from? That's a really interesting question. I started out playing music when I was about 6 years old. I was born out in Haiti, and most of the music I was playing at that point was hand drums and congas and stuff like that. My house was really full of all kinds of music, man. My mom listened to compa, which is like a Haitian kind of almost like soca music, or bachata or something like that. And I had an uncle. His name was Franz, and he was a guitarist. And the first time I saw him play, I just decided those congas could go away, and I want to play guitar. I'm not really sure like what I wanted to do as far as like what kind of music I was trying to do or anything like that. It was just like the pure expression of, you know, just art, you know, coming from nowhere, right? Because I would see my uncle playing, and it wasn't like he was like a really learned guitarist or musician or anything like that. He didn't take lessons or anything, but just the music he was playing, you can kind of tell was really coming from his soul. You know, whether you liked what it was or not, it's just
it's you know, it's just another expression of who you are, right?
Yeah, total extension and expression. So that was kind of what kicked it off. Like first it was the hand drums. Then, you know, seeing my uncle play guitar. And then as a kid, like let's say I was like at the doctor's office or something like that, right? You just be sitting there and you can just hear the songs playing on the radio, right? Just top 40 kind of stuff, you know, like Loverboy or whatever, you know, stuff like that. And I was just so interested in the way that the music made me feel. You know, it's almost like you can feel like the emotion that the artist or the writer or whoever is trying to get across. But, you know, you're a kid, so you don't really understand it, but you're getting that. It's like coming straight to the heart, you know, for you. And I think like I always wanted to do something like that, you know, and kind of make that noise to make somebody feel what I was feeling with their music.
It's all about connection, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's finding a way to take something that you're able to do to influence someone, to make them feel a certain way, to make them think about something, or maybe, you know, maybe even just have them hear it at all, right? Yeah,
you know, and it's weird because it's like, it doesn't even have to be, you know, something grand, you know, right? Because you can make a song that's about, I mean, think about it, like Sesame Street, right? You know, like hands, shoulders, knees, and toes, right? It's not complex. It's not anything, you know, but it sticks with you, right? It's like simplicity and things like that. And there's like that connection that happens, right? Because that, like as a kid, right, you're like, oh, they're singing hands, shoulders, knees, and toes. Right? Okay. These things make sense to me, you know?
Yeah. And so you lived in New York for a long time, right?
Yes, sir.
So when did your family move from Haiti?
We moved, man, I want to say it had to be like 82 or 83. We came over here.
So like about how old were you?
I was about 6 years old.
6, okay.
Yeah. There was, in Haiti around that time, there was a lot of like political upheaval, you know, which kind of happens there like every 10 years.
Yeah, you know.
It's a tumultuous place. So my mom happened to resemble the president's wife very much. And yeah, she looked very much like her. So it was a real source of fear because, you know, they're trying to topple the government over there. Papa Doc and Baby Doc. Papa Doc was Baby Doc's dad, of course. It was almost like a dynasty that they were trying to build there.
Sure.
They had it for a long time. And as they're trying to topple the government, of course, as a revolution is going on, she looks like the president's wife. You can imagine she wanted to get out of there as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we wound up coming to the States and going to New York.
And so what was that experience like for you, you know, moving into like the biggest city in America?
It was strange. Because, I mean, a lot of the things that I experienced in America, I had never really seen in Haiti. Socially, aesthetically. And we moved like right into like Empire Boulevard in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So we were like right in the middle of everything, Flatbush and all of that.
Yeah.
And it was really weird because my mom, she left me with my like my uncle and my cousins and everything, and she went to go work, you know, because she had to, you know, bring us money and stuff like that. And it was a strange time. Like, it was lonely. It was different. I didn't know anybody. And I think most of what I felt was fear, anxiety, and just a very deep feeling of uncertainty.
Well, you know, of course, I mean, you were a little kid and you're like a million miles from home, right?
Yeah.
And no, of course that'd be unsettling.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. And that was around like the time when, you know, I think what really helped me through that time was delving a lot into music, kind of what we were saying, like, you know, like hearing music and just getting into an imaginary world.
Exactly. It allows you to take away from these physical worries that you have, you know, and you get to go to a place where none of that really matters anymore.
Absolutely.
You know, and I mean, what's better than that? You know, you get to work on yourself and work on the way that you feel in this different plane, you know, that is creation. And
absolutely.
And I just think that that's super cool.
Absolutely. You know, it helps.
Of course.
It really was super cool. And, you know, and back then, it's strange, right? Because as a kid, it's hard to like, you know, as an adult, it's hard to kind of like remember like specifics.
For sure.
So like everything's kind of like this umbrella of a feeling that you kind of, you know what I mean? Like kind of remember. And that was really it. It was like, I'm in this world and it's kind of helping me. It's like greasing the wheels of all the things that I was actually going through, you know?
Yeah. No, totally. And so I've listened to like some of your acoustic music and I've seen your band play. And when did you start writing songs? Because I love your lyrics. I love your lyrics. That's been a real standout for me.
I appreciate that. It's weird. I feel like I started writing lyrics probably around the same time that I really started playing, you know? I kind of started out, I would listen to a song like an Aerosmith song or something like that, or a Michael Jackson song, and kind of like write my own version of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like take the cadence or whatever and like put my own words to it. But when I really started getting really serious about it, I'd say I was probably like 10 years old. Yeah. Like making my own songs and trying to take what I was feeling and put it down, not for really anybody else, but just so I can kind of see it and be like, okay, this is what I'm going through. And it's an interesting point. Like, a lot of it back then wasn't, you know, as we write songs now, right? They're, I'd say semi-intentional, right? Sometimes you're like, okay, there's something I want to get across. Yeah. Right. And other times you're like, I'm just writing to get it done. So I think as a kid, when I started to actually write, I was just writing to get it done. And then I would look back and be like, oh, I was saying something. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that's kind of interesting, and that's kind of a topic between a lot of different writers is like song meaning. And a lot of the times you'll be writing something and it maybe doesn't start out having that much meaning to you, but over time it starts to grow on you and develop into something that's really personal.
Absolutely.
And I just think that that's fascinating in and of itself, you know, that how songs can just change meaning to yourself, you know. And there are songs that I've written that thinking about them now, it's like what it means to me now isn't what it meant to me at the time at all.
That's the beauty of it though, right?
Totally.
And then you get that point where it's like, it changes meaning to you, and then the way that it affects somebody else, right? You could be coming from a standpoint that you're like, okay, this is what I'm trying to say. And then someone could like identify with 2 or 3 words out of this whole song that you wrote. And that's the part that sparks them or triggers them or makes them think of whatever it is that's happening. And it's completely separate from what you were thinking, you know?
Yeah, no, you just get to kind of influence. And but you don't, and I think a lot of artists, like, you hear some artists talk about like being upset about fans misinterpreting lyrics or taking another way. And I've always found that to be really silly.
Yeah, I think that's goofy, man.
It's just like, yeah, you wrote the song, right? Great, it's your song. But at the end of the day, what it makes someone feel, that's entirely unique to them.
Absolutely.
And it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that once you've written it and you put it out into the world, it's not yours anymore.
It's funny. I was just thinking that. No, that's the perfect way to put it. It's, the art that you've created, I don't think you should think of it as like, oh, this is mine. It's like, it's out there. It's the world's. It's the world's now.
Yeah.
And how people take that and how people let it influence them and let it influence their life, that's entirely up to them.
Absolutely, man. And I think that's the whole point of art, right? If you're a painter or a sculptor, I mean, yeah, the piece is yours, you made it and everything, but what you're really doing is putting it on display for other people to garner influence or whatever from it,
For sure. Yeah, you're taking something that you've done and you're allowing someone else to, as we were talking about the other day, you can take the same pieces and then in their own mind they get to do it with different colors, right? Yes. And they get to experience it for themselves. And so you're in the band Gagg Nancy, and I've seen you guys a couple times now and gotten to spend some time with everyone in your band, and I really like all of you. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I feel very lucky to know you. And just talking about your guys' music style, this kind of like, it's punk, but there's also metal, but then there's some rock influence, and then there's some softer stuff, like, what are the bands and artists that make you want to write and make you want to create?
I was always into the Doors. I was fascinated by Jim Morrison.
I love Jim Morrison.
Yeah, there's something about that guy. There's something really dangerous and beautiful about the way he articulated life. And I think there's a philosophical standpoint that he came from, which, some people are like, oh, yeah, you're trying to be a little bit extra. But I think, music has 2 sides, right? On one side, I think it's the highest art form, right? The highest form of art. But on the other side, society kind of cheapens it, so it's like they look at music as if it's like, you're just a musician. But I think he was like that perfect mix.
For sure.
Right.
Of, and I agree. I think that music in a way kind of has 2 sides to it. And I see it as like, there's a part that's purely artistic and then there's a part of it that's entertainment.
Right. And I think it's the entertainment factor that kind of sometimes in some people's minds like lessens the value of the actual musician, right? Because it's like you think about it, in the places where music doesn't get respect, it's interesting because it gets used for everything that does get respect, right?
Yeah,
politicians use it
for sure.
People use it for commercials. It's used for capitalism all day long, right?
For sure.
But then, as a musician, they're like, you just slow down, right? It's just like
it is very fascinating.
So Jim Morrison was definitely like my first huge influence. A friend of mine let me hear him when I was probably like 11 or 12 years old. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I didn't even think his voice was real. And then after a while, I got into bands like Metallica. I was way into hip hop, like especially the early beginnings of it, because of the lyrical content, and like the social political aspect of it. Trying to change the world, which got me into punk rock. So
yeah, no, it's interesting that you bring up both those things, because there's some really interesting cultural ties between what punk has always been a part of and what hip hop has always been a part of. And both of those genres of music have always been political in nature.
Absolutely.
And have always been about how we can make things better.
I agree. And, especially when I got to my teens, I started like going to like New York hardcore shows. And the crazy thing is you can go to a New York hardcore show and see Gigi Allen, right? The Beastie Boys, Run DMC, and Blondie all on the same set. Now think about like what that crowd looked like, like all these different people kind of connecting with the same nucleus, but all these different colors, right? Like what we said, it's just, you got punk rock, you got hip hop, you got some kind of weird pop synth thing going on,
Yeah.
And I think it's like the melting pot mentality is kind of what really influenced me all the way around when they started coming to like making songs for Gagg Nancy and stuff like that. It's like, we can do whatever we want. There are no boundaries. And I feel like when you start like that and kind of set that pace for the listener, they really don't have a choice but to accept it, right?
Yeah.
So if we started in one vein, like we're just going to do heavy songs, that's it. And then that's what everybody's going to expect from you, right? And if you take a left somewhere at Albuquerque, and they're like, nah, that's not it,
Yeah, I think that, that's something that a lot of bands and artists struggle with, is like feeling pigeonholed in a specific sound. And I, just listening to your music, like, it doesn't seem like you've really allowed that. And I respect that a lot. And it's something that I try to do within my band.
Oh yeah, I can hear it in your stuff.
We're trying to not just be one thing, because I don't think anybody is just one thing.
We're all pretty multidimensional, right?
Of course, and I think it would even be a little bit disingenuous and be like, oh, well, this is my art. Well, then why is it all the same thing? Are you one thing?
Right.
I don't think that's, that's not how I want to express myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that totally. And it's also, it's boring, right? As a listener, because I think all of us as musicians are fans first, right?
For sure.
Like something influenced us to do this. And it's always been that dichotomy where you kind of ride that line between like a pop sensibility and that, deep, like earthy, like understanding of the universe type of thing. You know what I mean? And I think without those two sides, you just kind of, run that same gauntlet that everybody else does,
Yeah.
And as a band, it was interesting because, with my band members, they were kind of surprised at how, like, once I started writing, it was just like, oh, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this, we can do that. And I wasn't like trying to, again, stick to a script,
Yeah.
So it's Gagg Nancy no matter what you do, right? Because it's still going to be the three of us playing, right? It's still going to be the vibe that we put out, but we just don't care about convention. We don't care about doing it the way anybody says it's supposed to be done.
Totally.
So who knows? We might do a pop song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have a couple songs that are super poppy, like our latest release is super poppy. It's like pop punk,
Totally.
Yeah.
No, and it's I think that people get a little bit too, what's the word? Snobbish about oh, well, this is our sound, guys. And it's like, well, let's try something. Let's, because once you stop trying new things and trying to innovate and trying to be creative, I think you kind of lose a bit of the soul of why you did it in the first place.
I agree.
It's because in the beginning, when you're writing songs, everything is a new adventure.
Yeah, and I think it should stay like that.
Totally.
Right? You should always feel like you're on a journey and it could fall apart at any minute, right? But then it also has the ability to be great.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about your band just because I love the way that you guys mesh and come together, and I love how your individual styles really, really shine through. You know, it's like it's almost like you guys seem so separate but so together, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the three of us, you wouldn't imagine we'd be in the same band together.
Of course
you
not.
wouldn't even imagine that we'd hang out together,
For sure.
But it works. I think a lot of it is being open and tolerating, like for instance, my drummer, he's a metal punk rock guy, you know what I mean? And my bassist, he's like an indie guy, like he's straight from indie bands, like he did a lot of stuff out in Florida where he's from. And most of it was just indie stuff, it wasn't really, but he always wanted to play metal. Here's a funny story. When we were jamming, like way back.
Like you and Emmett?
Yeah, Emmett and I, yeah. And he started playing Phantom of the Opera from Iron Maiden. And I'm listening, I'm like, what is that? Because I mean, the first couple Maiden albums those are like my Bible, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
He started playing it, and I'm like, what is that? And then like, I hear it again. I'm like, oh, I was like, is that Phantom of the Opera? He's like, you're the first person that got it. I was like, oh, I was like, dude, I love you. Like, this is what's up. Cause I didn't even expect that from him.
No, it's so great. Like when you're playing with somebody and then, they start to play a riff or a melody and it's like, and it's an immediate connection because it's from an artist that you both love. It's from a piece of music that you both individually were inspired by, and that's just another piece to connect.
Absolutely. So I mean, and kind of like what you said, the three of us, man, we just we're on a path of doing it from the heart, and your heart doesn't stay the same every day. You wake up different every morning. You know what I mean? And we kind of allow each other to express that, and they allow me to be, almost schizophrenic with the music, you know what I mean? And just do what I want. There's never like, we can't do that kind of beat or whatever, because we all kind of make it our own, right?
Yeah.
So X will add in his metal and punk influences to something that I'm doing that's like, that might even be like, it might even be super pop influenced or whatever, And then Emmett comes in with his, indie influence that's still tinged with metal, like early 80s metal, and it works. It's a balance.
No, and I love that. Are you a Deftones guy?
I love Deftones.
I love Deftones.
Chino is the man.
Chino is the fucking man.
He is so good, and I think the first album I actually heard from them was White Pony.
I love that record.
And then I started like digging back.
Yeah. So, and just talking about like different influences and how that can make a band, like that was just the first thing that popped in my mind, because when you look at that group of people, you have Chi, who, is like a fingerstyle bassist who was like way outside of metal.
Oh yeah.
And Chino was always just like a huge like synth pop guy.
Right.
And was just super into like Duran Duran and stuff like that.
Which is a band that I love, dude. Duran Duran, like the Reflex, like all those great songs.
Hell
man.
yeah.
Planet Earth, like yeah.
But and it's just interesting to see how all their different influences. Then of course you got like Abe Cunningham, who was like almost like a more hip hop kind of vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I just think it's always great when you get musicians together who aren't from the same background, because I think that's how you create something unique. You get these people who have all these different styles and voices and put them together, and it's just something new.
I think all the greatest bands are like that too. When you start to dig back and you look back, even at Zeppelin, you know what I mean? Say what you want about them. I mean, they stole a lot of stuff, you know what I mean?
Of course, as we all do.
Yeah, right. But I mean, at the same time, like, they're super influential. I still hear riffs, like from Zeppelin 4, like in my head, you know what I mean? From sitting home and like falling asleep with the album in my earphones,
Yeah.
And when you look at those guys, they all came from different backgrounds, I mean, Robert Plant was an R&B guy, you know what I mean? And you got, Jim, he was just straight like rock and roll, like what was happening at that point in time, You got John Bonham, who's like it almost sounds like he was in the big band the way he plays the drums, you know? And but I guess what I'm trying to say is I do agree with that, because all those different influences make something new.
Yeah, you get to create something that has all of you in it. And that's why it's a band. That's why it's not one person,
Absolutely.
Because you all kind of get to add some color to it to create this, new style, this new vision. And I don't know. I don't know if there's any cooler way to create music in my book.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I did music by myself for a long time, and it was frustrating because kind of what you said, I would just see, okay, I can see my line. I know exactly what I'm going to do. Nobody's going to be like, hey, why don't we turn this around?
Sure.
Why don't we turn this into a 5? Why don't we do this and do that? And that synergy of people working together without ego.
For sure.
I think it's one of the most beautiful things in the world, man.
I completely agree.
Always come up with something great, even if it's not, palatable to,
Sure.
everyone. But for you guys, and when you guys decide to, execute it in front of people, it takes a left, sometimes where it shouldn't. And that's the great thing.
For sure. And talking about like your solo music, so there's an acoustic show happening in Ogden pretty soon. I don't remember which day is that?
Ogden, I think we're on the 27th of September.
27th of September. So Marco's going to be playing an acoustic set. And so it's in that same alley, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be right outside Wasatch Roasting Company on the 27th. I'm probably going to do a little set. We're going to have a lot of people there. It's going to be a great time. So, if you're in Ogden on the 27th, stop by and come hang out and just enjoy some music.
We're going to make him do a set.
Well, okay.
He's got to do a set, man. He's got to do a set. He's got to put his spirit on that stage or in that alley.
Yeah. It's funny because, when I heard about the acoustic show and my dad was talking, he was like, you could do a set. And, immediately that like terrified me because I'm so used to playing with a band now. But because it scares me, I think that it is something I should do.
I think so. I think getting out of your comfort zone. And plus, you have a certain kind of like, when we saw you, again, I'll go back to that. It's just, there was just something there. It's almost intangible, but some people have it and some people just don't have it, where it's like, I look at you and I'm like, you could probably do whatever you want, and it's going to be good.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like recognizes like, and I'm saying that because I feel like I can do whatever I want, and I see that in you. So I don't think you doing an acoustic set is going to be bad at all. You're going to probably feel nervous, but that's great. That's how it should be.
Yeah, no, that's how you make progress.
Absolutely.
So you're working on some new music with Gagg Nancy, right? Yes. Tell me about it.
So what we're doing is we came out with an EP called Let's Do It for Johnny. Mm-hmm. If anybody knows, if you ever watched The Outsiders and stuff like that, you kind of know the vibe that I'm on with that. And so we had our old drummer and old guitarist kind of record that stuff with us in 2022. And we're not really happy with it, though we love the songs. There's a lot of things that we wanted to do that we didn't have time to do. Sure. And then we have a demo of about 5 or 6 songs that we never actually recorded professionally. So we're going to take Let's Do It for Johnny and take that demo and all those songs together, make the new album with it. Cool. So, yeah.
So, and is there like a time frame for that, or do you know?
We're trying to get it done by the end of the year.
Cool.
And just kind of we've been playing these songs live for, 2 years. So they've changed from, their original conception. And so we want to capture that. We want to capture what we're doing now. And also one of the main catalysts for it is X. I want his drumming on those songs, since he's been such an integral part of the band. I think that like we were here when, before he got in the band. And then once he got in the band, we just like the confidence level and everything came up because he's super competent. He knows what he wants.
For sure. He's a great drummer.
He's a great drummer, and he's also just he's an artist, man. You know what I mean? Like when you see him and you talk to him, you realize like this man he's on point. He knows what the fuck is up when it comes to art, you know? And I love that because I love interacting with that because for me, it's art as well. It's not just, we're just chugging along, just making sounds, you know?
No, you're creating something bigger, and that's what it all is, right? You're just trying to create something greater than you.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate you coming on the show and talking to me, and I'm super. I hope you guys decide to record some stuff here at the studio.
Oh, we want to,
because I think it'd be really fun, and we'll obviously shoot a lot of videos for y'all in the studio recording that music, and
yeah, I think we definitely want to do that for sure.
But I appreciate you, man.
You as well.
I try, we see, we fight.